It's 10 away from 7 o'clock. Good to have you with us on the Friday edition of the South African Morning. Let's talk politics. Why? Because the elections are just around the corner. An intense battle to retain and even gain new voters is already underway. Both the ANC and the DA managing to retain seats in the recent by-elections in Gauteng and KZN. But as we know, when it comes to independent election analyst Wayne Sussman, that's only half the story. Wayne, thank you for coming in. Appreciate the time. So let's first of all, let's start with Gauteng. We'll work down towards the coast. So DA and ANC, what happened in the Gauteng by-elections? Because this does have a trickle effect on next year's elections.
Correct. So the big question we were trying to answer in Gauteng is, could the Freedom Front continue to make inroads into the DA support base in areas with strong concentration of Afrikaans speakers? So there's a by-election in Ekurhuleni. By the way, this is the largest ward, Ward 25, the largest ward in Ekurhuleni. But what's even more interesting is that Charlize Tron spent some of her formative years in this particular ward. So lots of small holdings, plots, areas of immense wealth, areas of deep poverty. And here the DA held the ward, very small losses. Freedom Front did make inroads, but the DA will be very, very happy with that support. And the other interesting thing about this particular ward in Ekurhuleni was the EFF beating the ANC for third place. And then in Heidelberg, which is near the Suikerbosrand, the Lesedi municipality, I expected the Freedom Front to give the DA a real fright there. The DA actually went slightly up and the Freedom Front went a bit down. So the DA passed this test in this particular time, and the Freedom Front will want to think, how do you replicate what we've done in the Northwest and Limpopo in a more urban area like Gauteng?
And do we know in an area like near Suikerbosrand where we can see that the Freedom Front have lost numbers, DA has gone up, do we know if those voters have gone from the Freedom Front to the DA? Is that kind of data available? Can we go, they went from here straight to there? It's that clear.
There's an area called Rensburg, which is very particular, with a high concentration of white Afrikaans voters in Heidelberg, and there was a slight move from the Freedom Front to the DA. But I expected it to be a very close race, and the DA's margin of victory is actually greater. So the DA has passed that test in this particular round of by-elections. Now, can they continue that when we go to more and more by-elections in places like Pretoria and Tshwane, the nation's capital? Because that'll be a good sign for them on the road to 2024 in Gauteng, where we know the most amount of voters are.
KZN, very interesting, of course, often called one of the hotspot provinces. Some have even said in the past it's the kingmaker province. I'm not sure if that's going to be the case next year, of course, but let's talk what happened down in KZN. Traditionally an ANC stronghold, you've got to bring in the IFP on that depending where you are in the province. Let's talk by-elections, KZN.
So we're going to come back to Chatsworth because that's very interesting, but you just spoke about the ANC and the IFP. When we look at the map of KwaZulu-Natal, northern KwaZulu-Natal is where the IFP is overperforming and have traditionally been incredibly strong. There was a place called in the Mandeni municipality near the Tugela River mouth between Kwadokuza and Eshawi. The ANC rock solid there in this by-election. I expected the IFP to make some inroads there, but the ANC hardly lost any ground. And then, strangely, you contrast that with southern KwaZulu-Natal, to Umzimkhulu, a high proportion of Xhosa speakers in this particular area. This is in the Harry Gwala district. Now, when you look at the map of KwaZulu-Natal, there is no better place for the ANC. This is their fortress. And here you see the ANC lose some ground, falling from 80% to 66%. And who's the big winner? The IFP, who barely got 1% of the vote in 2021, climbing to 25%. So if the IFP can replicate this in more and more places in southern KwaZulu-Natal, KwaZulu-Natal is going to be even more exciting. But you contrast that in northern KwaZulu-Natal, we expect the IFP to do better and the ANC is doing fine. So that was absolutely fascinating.
And we have to talk about Chatsworth as well and the DA. I mean, this was a staggering number for them.
Correct. So let's remind the viewers, President Cyril Ramaphosa campaigned there. His advisors sent him to campaign there. The ANC fielded the former DA ward councillor, a man who had won ward elections in Chatsworth, not once, not twice, not three, not even 4 times. He's going for his 5th consecutive victory, and the DA won by an overwhelming majority. And this is very important, Gareth, because we know that the Indian population is a key component of the KwaZulu-Natal voter composition. And this is the first by-election we've had in a long time in a predominantly Indian area, and the DA got over 80% of the vote. So they will be very, very satisfied with that.
And it's very important when you look at, as you were saying, 5 wins in this area as well, because it does speak to the councillors in the area, because this is all about the trust. And this is, I know we're going to unpack this as we get closer to elections. If you can find politicians that communities trust, they will keep them in power. They can actually get the job done.
Correct, but here the DA accounts are defected to the ANC and they were rejected this time round. However, you're correct, candidates matter. Back to Ekurhuleni, the EFF fielded a very interesting candidate. She doesn't fit the normal profile of an EFF candidate. It's a white old lady with dreadlocks. She was very well known in that particular area, and I think that's a key reason why they beat the ANC for 3rd place. So candidates matter in a local government election, and they're certainly going to matter next year when it comes to the national and provincial elections.
Just as I start saying goodbye to you in a moment, what do we read into this? Can we read into this ahead of the elections next year? Is this one of those markers in an election calendar where in a year's time you and I might be sitting here and we talk about these results from yesterday in a year's time, or are they not significant on a national picture?
Well, we could see some consolidation back towards the ANC and the DA. That was one outcome here, because both the ANC and the DA have had some tough times lately. However, what's important to see isn't just to look at isolated results, but to look at a pattern of results emerging in southern KwaZulu-Natal, a pattern of results looking at Ekurhuleni. And the closer we get to the election, we can have the conversation. Are these trends we saw in late May holding? And that's why we need to keep on having these conversations.
And I certainly hope we do. Wayne Sussman, thank you very much, as always, coming in. It's always incredible analysis, not just the numbers, of course, but why they're so important in these parts of the country ahead of those key national elections next year. Independent election analyst Wayne Sussman taking us up to all